Hello to Mindfulness Collective. This, right here, right now, is the Joy of Being Alive stream coming to you live from Brooklyn, New York, and I am invisible. I know. You might think that that's a problem, but that's actually the plan from the very beginning. There we go, folks. Here we are. Cha-ching. Excellente. It worked. We're here. We survived. I'm wearing a colorful shirt for the first time in a long time. Very excited to be here with you folks. What an exciting moment. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, what is up, folks? What's going on? What's new? What's happening? What are you doing? Where are you at? What are you grateful for? I'm in BK. Grateful for I am grateful to that I remembered to stop working because I misspelled this. I literally was like working up to the last second. I was in a meeting and I was like, I have to stream right now. So that's why I live a little late. So folks, very excited to begin here. I think I might be turned way down, so I'm gonna wait. I got a fan going in the background. I got to turn off. Hold on 1 second. It's like that noisy rumbling in the background. I'll be back in 30 seconds. If anyone comes in, let them know, or I'll be right back. There we go, nice and quiet. Folks, excited to be here with you today. So much better if I don't have to shout. Very excited to be here with you today and excited that we get to meditate, we get to have a good time. Life is good, interesting, fun times for all. Okay, folks, hit me up with where you're at, what you're grateful for, and we'll begin meditating in just a little bit. What are we going to meditate on today? I had a plan, and now I have to remember what that plan was. What if the whole stream was just me drinking? Just me for hours taking little sips. Occasionally getting up to use the facilities. Okay, so folks, we're going to meditate for 25 minutes. Julia, welcome from Vienna, Austria. Grateful for relaxation. Excellent. You've come to the right place. So, anyone else, hit us up with where you're at and what you're grateful for today. I want to mention here, grateful for moods moving. Oh, Cheeseor, grateful for being alive. Cheeseor, I feel like I've seen you here before. Have you been to the stream before? I don't recall. But since I haven't seen you in a long time, I'm going to assume that, in fact, I haven't seen you in a long time. And we were going to welcome you in the fashion that we do for people who are first time here. Welcome. Welcome to the stream. It's been a while. I know it's been a while. So welcome. For that, you get a bunch of little green slime balls. Welcome back. Okay, and what else? Nick, welcome. Stuck in massively boring Zoom meeting. Kaboom. BBL. Grateful for equanimity. Excellent. Excellent. Thanks, everyone, for welcoming back Cheeseor. Good morning. Grateful for refreshing shower. I'm grateful that you guys showed up, even though I only gave you like 10 seconds of warning before this thing started. I had, like I mentioned, a work meeting that went right into the last second for no reason other than the fact that I just forgot. So thank you for being here. Folks, we're going to meditate for 25 whole minutes. And I was thinking about different ways of meditating. I'm trying to think of what was the thing that I wanted to meditate on. Okay, so last time we did an IFS related process related to memory reconsolidation, which is pretty far down the line. This is Yeah, Another version of a thing that we could do, which would probably definitely come before that, is just dealing with, like, what do you do with any part that arises? Basically, I think that's, in a way, what we'll do. I think that's a good meditation to get into. It's like any part that arises is, how do you treat it? How do you relate to it? What do you say? These kind of things. So these are universal tools that we would use. I think that would be a good meditation, because I don't think I have that. I'll give you the short version now, which is that every part that arises, the basic premise is we want to befriend it. How we do that is by recognizing and basically respecting its role, that it feels like what it's doing is important. This is it's a good skill for life in general. Like, someone comes up and is like, I don't know, sweeping, but they're sweeping all around your feet in some way that feels like weird. It's like the first thing to recognize is that this person thinks this is important. They feel this is an important thing to do, and they feel like I should be doing this. It's just respectful to say, oh, thank you. Thank you for doing this work. Thank you for all your effort, etc. And then the first thing you do is you get to a place where you can be, curious and interested about whatever part this is. Now, the thing is that you might find, let's use our sweeping person. This is a metaphor for things happening within us, but externally, this is can work as well. This person's sweeping up, but they're like sweeping, they're hitting your feet with a broom. The first thing is to be like, oh, well, thank you for that effort, but what happens is that some part of us is like, this is so stupid, what are you doing, right? So it's a funny, okay, so explaining this is funny, because this is like, I do this intuitively, but then basically what that means is, unless we are at a place where we can come to it from kind awareness, that just means another part is arising. So we would just shift to that part. So let's switch this from our sweeping person, because it switches to weirdly be internal suddenly. So switching, we have some part of us that's like always fussing and making a list. How about that? I can visit the stream because I work the morning shift. Grateful you guys can make it. Good morning, refreshing shower, Guatemala. Grateful for work scheduling. Exactly. I'm glad you guys could be here. So the point of it is that okay, I'm giving a confusing explanation here. So let's erase everything I said from what people doing the time codes here. Sorry, this is where the explanation starts. So how do we deal with any part that arises? The assumption is that we're trying to move towards a kind of friendship or connection with any part. So if we start to try to do that and some other part comes in, we say, hey, could you step aside, and then try to make the friendship, the connection, the sort of warm, kind connection. But if we can't, and that part comes in and is like, this is stupid, I hate this meditation, I hate you, we can shift our awareness over to that part and say, oh, I understand why you would hate this. You really don't like this. You're working really hard. And the mind is very good at producing all sorts of tasks and things. It's like it's doing and doing and doing, but it always thinks that what it's doing is life or death. And so part of the way that we break that cycle of the mind thinking, this is life or death, which is the reason, we're laying in bed at night and suddenly the mind will hit us with adrenaline. Hey, remember that embarrassing thing you said 10 years ago? We should think about that right now. It's like fully not necessary, but the mind and the body and mind think that it's necessary. They think it's important. So it puts us in a position where it's constantly doing this thing it thinks is important. It's always survival, and so the body and mind are constantly trying to survive, do better. Died 10 years ago, exactly. So in order to short circuit that tendency, one of the first things we have to do is actually respect the part of us that's saying that, because usually, it's 2 a.m, 5 a.m, and the mind is like, remember that thing you said, and it like hits us with adrenaline. We're like, stop, go away, just stop thinking about that. I don't want to think about it. I want to go to sleep. And then we're trying to go to sleep and we're frustrated we can't go to sleep. And actually what is skillful is to have some compassion for that part. There's part of us, and think about how tough it would be to live like this. There's part of us that thinks it needs to worry about things that happened 10 years ago in order to be okay. It's like, oh man, I'm so sorry to hear that, little buddy. Like, that's really tough. And so part of the process is to respect that part of ourselves, be kind to that part of ourselves. So let's do a little meditation on that, and then we will go from there. Silence your cell phones. I don't want to hear those cell phones ringing across the internet. And I also want you to be hydrated, so take a sip from your novelty-sized glass of water. Cough off microphone. Find a nice comfortable position that you can maintain for the duration of the sit. Nate says, grateful for overwhelmingly loud, like you have to raise your voice to be heard walking around outside. Cicadas. Oh my God. Yeah, cicadas are intense, man. Cicadas are really intense. Okay, so find a nice comfortable position that you can maintain for the duration of the sit. We're going to be sitting for 25 minutes. You'll probably survive. Of course, you might have already heard this. If you feel overwhelmed, feel free to adjust or stop. If you want to move, make sure you do so. You wait 30 seconds or a minute before you actually take that action, and then we'll go from there. Oops, not yet. Okay, ready, folks? And we'll begin. Beginning by taking a few comfortable deep breaths. Just feeling the body rise and fall. We can slow the momentum of the mind by simply attending to the sensations of this particular moment. In this case, the sensations of relaxing the body physically, and beginning by sweeping through the body, relaxing the major muscle groups, including the head, the neck, and shoulders. For a moment, relaxing the neck and shoulders so much that there is a millimeter drop in the shoulders themselves. Very subtle, but noticing if we can relax more deeply than we can even physically feel. Relaxing the arms, relaxing the hands, letting go of any attempt to control the breath, letting the body breathe as it will. Noticing the natural tightening and relaxing the upper chest and upper back as the breath comes and goes. Relaxing the belly and the lower back. Relaxing the hips, the legs, and relaxing the feet. And then actively relaxing everywhere in the whole body as one large experience. Not any particular place in the body, but all of the body. And then seeing if you can take in the experience of all of the body as one collection. Often this means we can't use our attention or the pointed part of the mind, but using our awareness as though we were using the periphery, holding all body experience as one soft collection. And eventually landing in a place where you can take in all of our sensory experience. So again, this doesn't mean that the mind isn't occasionally pulled towards details, but just that we're resting in a place that is holding this big category, sensing, or capturing generally the experience in this particular moment. And because this cloud of sensing is a bit more generalized, the mind can become foggy, soft. So attending to clarity, noticing how clearly whatever experience arises is known to the mind. Even if it's sleepiness or fogginess, it is known to the mind with great clarity. Awareness itself is bright and clear. And what happens when we stay with this overall experience? Distraction will come in the form of various parts, sections of our experience. This might be just a small sensation, but it can also be a characterological part. In other words, a submind, or what we might call a self. So if anyone one of these parts arises, I'm going to say hello. Greet it warmly and then introduce it back to the overall experience. This is a whole part meditation with some awareness that various selves may arise. And we'll simply treat these just like another part of our experience to be introduced to the whole. Not a problem, just a part. Staying with the whole, allowing the mind to be spacious and open, and if any particle or part arises, introducing it back to the whole, introducing all the other sensations around it, letting the two mix and return to this overall experiencing. And noticing as we do this, if any one of these selves or parts keeps arising, one that is distracted in a particular way, a foggy part that's pulling us towards sleepiness, a part that keeps worrying or arguing, a part that's assessing how this is going. Whatever part we might notice is arising more frequently, taking a moment to turn to that part and say, "Ah, yes, I see you. Thank you for working so hard. Thank you for bringing whatever you're bringing to my attention." This doesn't mean we have to engage with the content. We're just being thankful for the effort, maybe even the sacrifice this part is making. if we find that we can be aware of any one of these parts, aware of where it is in the body, aware of any emotions related to it, any imagery that feels like it's part of this part's personality or character. Just being interested, compassionate, open. Nothing needs to happen or change. Just being present with this part and communicating our interest, our curiosity, our openness. And we're trying to get towards a place where not only do we have this kind regard, this kind awareness, but that this part can detect that. This part can feel that compassion, that care, or that awareness. And the only way to find this out is to ask the part directly, seeing if it responds with touch sensation or mental audio, image, other body sensation. However it responds, at some point it will clearly indicate that it can or cannot feel those qualities. If it can, we simply stay with this. If it cannot, we use our intuition to find a way to allow this part to feel held. Perhaps a phrase, "I hear you," or "I see you." Or perhaps just, "Of course. Of course." And what we're doing is we're simply building a friendship. And building a friendship is a time-based process. So there's nothing that needs to happen. In fact, it can be helpful for any part to recognize that we're not trying to change it, not trying to make it be different, not trying to make it stop doing what it's doing or stop feeling what it's feeling. We're simply with that part as it is. Of course. Of course. Of course this part would feel that way or think these thoughts. Of course that part would try us to get to do certain things. Given its history and understanding of the world. Of course. Of course. And of course, as we do this, as we build this friendship, other parts will jump in, thinking that they are needed. A part that understands might jump in to analyze. A part that's concerned about time may jump in to warn us about time. A part that judges may come and say that this whole process is just dumb. And so we either ask these parts to step aside, again kindly understanding their duty, compassionately respecting all their efforts and their sacrifice. And if they're willing to step aside and let us be with this part, then that's fine. That's what we do. But if they're not willing, or they keep interrupting in some way, we simply shift. Letting the first part know that we'll be back. We'd like to talk to it soon. And shifting to the other part that's being insistent, saying hello. Thank you for all your hard work. Of course. Of course. And no part is more important than another, so we don't have to worry that we're not going in the right direction, or we can't come back to that other part. Sometimes the interrupting part will be willing to just step back. We can ask directly, do you mind if I return to this other part? You can hang out just on the edge of awareness, and I'm just going to connect with this part I was connecting with before. It may say yes or no, and we simply listen. Again, no need to change any part we're in contact with. Simply bringing kind regard, of course. Of course. And now taking a moment to thank all of the parts, the ones who were willing to step back, the ones who are willing to communicate, the parts that assess, the parts that warn, the parts that manage. Creating a kind of global appreciation. All parts welcome back to the whole. Noticing if this feels different. And staying with the practice, staying in stillness. Often parts of us feel very isolated. They feel like they're in the dark, simply given a job, asked to do that job endlessly. So letting all of these parts see a little bit of light enter the eyelids as they begin to open. Eventually allowing the eyes to rest on a single point that's not text, not a screen. Letting all of these parts see through your eyes, feel through your body. Usually parts don't get to have this experience unless they take over the whole mind and body. They don't get to share that often. So noticing this, noticing what the experience is like for you, for the parts. And in this way, letting this particular moment be the great teacher that shows us how we might bring this practice into every aspect of our life. Okay. So making any adjustments you need to allow the body to be comfortable. Stretch a doodle. Whew. Whew. Okay. So folks, 2 ways to have contact here. I'm going to encourage folks who don't usually jump on the Discord to jump on the Discord today just for fun. See what happens. It's that first link there. That's the Discord to chat. You can also just type in your response, but it'd be fun to hear from people we don't usually get to hear from, and regulars as well, as always. But as you begin to integrate your practice into your life, into your current experience, noticing and allowing these parts to be present is a powerful way to increase the intensity and power of the practice itself. That's what I recommend. Okay, so what was that experience like? What happened and what are you like now? We have here a comment from Massive Quant, I think is what, Massive Quant. First of all, it's Massive Quant's first time here, pretty sure. So we have a very special way. And even, who do we have here? Who came earlier? Cheeseor knows how we do this. So we have a very special way of welcoming folks who it's their first time here. We're very happy that you are here with us. Thanks for joining. Oops, what did I do? Nope. Okay, here we go. Welcome, sir. Welcome, welcome. Great to see you here. Okay, Massive Quant asks, what type of webcam are you using? This is a Sony, what is this thing? 5400? It's an older camera. They have like 6400 and on, but I think it's a Sony 5400. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. I can even search it. Is that what it is? No. Camera. I forget what it's called. Oh, here we go. Alpha? No, it's not an Alpha. It's an A5400. I think that's pretty sure what it is. Sony A5400. Yeah. Okay. And yeah, good times. Okay, folks. So hit me on Discord. Let's see who's on Discord. We can chit chat like kitty cats. Discord is opening. Neck is cracking. And we'll talk. What was that experience like? What happened? What do you like now? Discord is starting for the third time. I don't know why. Here we go. And we're in. Okay. That first link should get you there. Okay, there's no one here yet. Cool. Yeah, what was that experience like? What happened and what are you like now? No pressure, no obligation, but yeah, what was that experience like? And yeah, I'm spacey. Okay, what was that experience like? What happened? What do you like now? And jump in right away because we might have to cut a little short on the stream because I got a thing I might have to do. Let's pull up in here. Great. Okay, Wunderlama says the following.
Very interesting realization. Rationally, I find IFS and working with parts very intriguing, and rationally it makes so much sense to me, but sitting and actually trying to work with the parts feels hard. Mm-hmm. Harder than any other type of meditation.
Well, so a few things. One is that, how do you make it less hard? Well, first of all, I'm wondering, Wunderlama, if you've done whole part meditation before, just doing whole and part, regardless of whether they're emotional parts. The other thing is that if you're trying to approach a part that's very vulnerable, it's likely that other parts are going to jump in. And so it's possible that the difficulty you're feeling, because it's actually really, really straightforward. It's much more straightforward than you might think. So you've probably had the experience, this is very, very common, where you want to, get up and do something productive, but you also want to watch a show or you also want to eat some ice cream. Very common, right? Right now, there's probably, you're listening to this answer, you just did a meditation, but there's also part of you that's like, oh yeah, there's this other thing I have to do. Or in a meditation, you get distracted and this part comes up and it says, oh, I felt very distracted. Now, it is true that working with someone directly, working with somebody one-on-one, in a way, them being there helps you stay with it because you have a little social pressure, and those kind of things are really useful for staying with the meditation. But the point I was trying to make Ooh. Oh. Oh. Yeah. The point I'm making is that you're just noticing, how can you tell that that's the case? How can you tell that part of you wants to go do some other thing or has a to-do list, right? You're usually meditating, practicing. The mind says, oh, there's these things you have to do. Don't forget this and don't forget that. How do you know that that's happening? Well, there's some degree of mental image, and usually there's some degree of like body sensation, like a pull in a direction or this kind of thing. That's enough. That's all it has to be. It doesn't have to be more than that. It doesn't have to be more complex, any of those things. So hopefully that is clarifying, makes things a little easier. And then that's that. Okay. Here we have Julia Temple saying,
Started out a little angry, tired and hopeful. I seem to be getting much better at dealing with dullness, tiredness because I was less distracted than expected.
great.
The only distinct part that arose was a bored, restless part. After a while it was drowned out by the tiredness. Now I'm quite relaxed.
Awesome. Well, keep in mind that I've started to deal with fogginess and sleepiness in meditation as a part. And there's two aspects of it. One aspect is just the physical tiredness. It's just like, it actually just feels really relaxing and good. It feels like a fog. It's like, oh yeah, this is good. But then there's this other part that's much more like a character that's like, you have to go lay down, like lay down now. Go to, and it's like, feels like a need, like, and so that need is often a good indication that there's some part action happening there. So the biological part is just sleepiness, and it's a little comfortable fogginess. But, you know, sometimes I wonder if that's just its own part. The need part is often where I get a lot of juice from that. Hopefully that's helpful. Oh, we have here Asbin Illusion. Asbin, you've been here before. Welcome back. Great to see you. Asbin Illusion says, oops, that's not what I wanted. I just opened a new tab. Asbin Illusion says,
Very calm meditation today. I realized that I find it more difficult to recognize the parts while I'm meditating unless I'm actually looking for them. It's as if all the parts calm down and become silent during meditation. It's easier to see the parts during the rest of the day as they make themselves more obvious when I'm triggered by something.
great. Well, good. I mean, in the end, you can just hang out in the hole. Just hang out there and stay there. No problem. Not a problem. You can, and however, this is often what happens with if you're doing IFS directly. You're saying, I want to work on X, and this is the thing that I want to work through, or the challenge, etc. So you are to some degree evoking the part itself. And you would, if you were working with somebody doing IFS, they might start and say, "There's part of me that really has a hard time with public speaking," and so you'd say, "Okay, well, let's tune in. Like, can you detect any aspect of that difficulty or that part arising now in you?" And because it's directed, you can actually find a part in that way. What should I do when I'm arising and passing? When I'm in the arising and passing? Well, observe, notice, there it is. If parts arise, you can ask them to step aside. You can watch parts arise and pass. You know, one of the things that's helpful to do in an arising and passing scenario is to see what's remaining, what is not arising and what is not passing, and recognize often those things feel very stable, and to recognize that stability is actually dynamic. And so there's a different kind of arising and passing, which is very powerful, which is to recognize dynamism. So right now my hands are pressing together. I've done this demonstration before and pressed as hard as I can. I like pulled muscles just pressing. So you know, these two things are pressing together, and it's still, there's stillness here, but this isn't, you know, what we usually think is stillness, because there's something happening, there is something occurring. So often something that feels still or solid or remaining when in an arising and passing experience is actually a dynamic experience, two things pushing against each other, creating a kind of turbulence, and that turbulence feels like stillness. So it's a different model. So arising and passing, and I'll explain what this is in a second. Arising and passing is a temporal model. We're seeing something come and then go, and it's like moving through time. What I'm describing now is expansion contraction, which is a spatial model. So the premise being that if we're to get too stuck in the temporal model, there can be a sense that anything that comes and goes, well, that's arising and passing. Anything that isn't coming and going, well, that somehow doesn't fit, so we're waiting for it to go away. We're like, okay, it's here, so when does it go? but we don't realize that what's happening is it is just continuously becoming. It is just continuously coming into the present by its form of dynamics. So that's a powerful way to expand arising and passing experiences using one model versus another. And what I also want to mention here is, if you don't know what arising and passing is, stage in the path of insight. Yep, I understood. So if you don't know what arising and passing is, it's on one side, it's any situation where something appears or disappears. More classically, it's a place where all we can see is that experience of dynamics. So all we see is that things appear and disappear and appear and disappear, and everything just has this quality to the point where it starts to create a feedback loop and build on itself because of its own momentum. So we're just, building on that momentum, riding that wave, and part of riding that wave is finding if there's any remainder, anything left, and then letting that get eaten up along with everything else. Hopefully that makes sense. Also called Kundalini awakening. Sometimes some people will theorize that everything in Kundalini is what would be called arising and passing from a Theravada perspective. Okay, so I'm reading ahead here. Let's jump to Jean. Jean says,
My mind is bouncing around today, lots of reviewing. I tried to just note it as a fact and feel gratitude that I have a practice which allows me to notice when I'm not fully present. It made me recall dealing with a person who spaced out during conversations and wouldn't remember them, and I spent a little time worrying I am going through life like this person. This one is going to be a do-over for me, didn't really have a chance to access parts, or they didn't clearly announce themselves.
It's an interesting theme that I'm seeing arising in people's practice, that I wonder if there's something either I did or something about the practice that lends itself to have it harder to find the parts. Because for me, it's quite easy. I was practicing and I would notice the part that wants to explain the meditation. I would be, okay, the next thing we should say is, okay, cool, thank you for that. Metabolize that part. I would be practicing, and then the part that I was working with two main parts. I was working with the sleepy part and the need for sleepiness, and it was just like pretty apparent. There was like this driving need, and then and then I worked with another part, which actually I sort of pulled up a different part in order to connect with that. But it might just be a matter of practice. So, Has Been Illusion says,
should we actively look for parts during meditation? Or does it depend on what kind of meditation we're doing at any point?
Yeah, I would only do that if you're doing a meditation where you want to work with parts. If you're trying not to work with parts, then you're trying to essentially either attend to whatever is occurring sort of in a more pointed way, or you're trying to hold an overall experience in a larger way. Either one of these are great ways to practice, and you don't have to look for parts. What will happen, though, is parts will arise. They'll almost universally arise. Typically what we do is just say, oh, if you don't mind, we're just going to ask you to step aside. But if the same part is arising over and over and over again over time, it is highly valuable to eventually work with that part directly and say, okay, let's just figure out what it is you're asking for. Yeah, cool. Exalted, I think I answered your questions. Any other questions or comments, interest, opportunities? Nobody's on Discord. That's fine. That's fine. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, no problem. Exalted says,
after the experience, there's also a period of happy times. Is there anything special or productive I can do during happy times?
I'm a big generalist, and what I would encourage is just whatever would be helpful and supportive for your life. It's often a good idea to assess where you want to go, because you have a lot of leverage with all that momentum. So it's helpful to say, okay, what are my values? What's important to me? How do I stay balanced in my life and not just get sort of caught in like, this is wonderful, I can quit my job and I'm going to be in this lovely state forever. So generally, I would just say check in with your values and see if you can, find as much balance as possible. That is my general tip on that. Chizor says the following.
Had a great session. I think it helped that I had already meditated earlier today, so I could really get into it. First time exploring IFS for me, no big insight, but it was cool to see different parts more clearly and teasing them apart.
Great.
At the end of the session, my father, real one, not ifs, came by and randomly started an argument with me. Quite annoying, but at least the unrest and anger caused by it quickly subsided.
Great. Well, yeah, and that's, that's definitely a situation where different parts are going to arise, and a defensive part or a sort of angry part or any of these things. So that's great. Great work. And also, this is a little out of order. This is not how I might necessarily start IFS with people, but you can look online and see if there's anything there. Let's see here. Okay, so hopefully that helps. Julia says, what do people mean by shadow sides? So what people mean by shadow sides is basically parts that are disavowed, parts that are like not allowed. So shame is a good, shadow part of ourselves, where it's like, oh, this part is not allowed. It's not good. I just got to get rid of this part. Shame, in my experience, is we look at the most vulnerable part of ourselves, and some part of us thinks, depending on how we identify, if we identify with that most vulnerable part, we're like, I'm no good. I'm not good enough. I'm the worst, right? If we disidentify with it, we're like, oh, it's so stupid. I wish this part of me just would shut up or not exist. And there's a sense that if that vulnerability, this is what shame is, if that vulnerability would just stop existing, then I would be okay. And so there's like an internal pressure to make that vulnerable experience disappear and stop. And everybody has vulnerabilities. So this is what's interesting is that, so right, if anyone has an experience with shame, which most people have some, right now, if you can detect that experience, that part of us, it's like, oh God, I'm not good enough, oh, like worried, or like just has this sort of underlying, like maybe I'm going to make a mistake. What's interesting is that part might be there, but in order for that part to have that feeling, there's nothing right now that's judging us, probably. I mean, Chizo said his dad came in and started arguing with him, so maybe, but probably not right at this moment. So that means there's another part inside of us saying, you're not good enough, what's wrong with you, why are you always, in order for that dynamic to happen. So now we've discovered some very significant parts. There's one that feels like, oh, maybe I'm not good enough. And then there's another part that's like, you're not good enough. What's wrong with you? Why are you always, and it's this sort of critical voice. Both of these are protecting. They're like both like one part is like, I'm not good enough and I got to figure something out because I'm going to be rejected or something. And this other part is like, you're not good enough. What's wrong with you? You're going to be rejected. But they don't realize that they're just causing massive turmoil. So hopefully that's helpful. Any other questions, curiosities, interest, opportunities, anything like that? Anything I can be helpful with in one's life, even if you've never been here before, ask a question and ye shall receive probably an overly detailed answer, probably more detailed than you're looking for. But hopefully it helps. Otherwise, we can hit the brakes and come back next week. Yes, next week there is no stream this Friday. I'm taking a day off. Thank you very much for allowing that, everybody. Very appreciated. And any other questions, reports, curiosities? Is there anyone on Discord waiting to chat? No, there is not. So I'm going to hang up on Discord. Okay, folks. Lovely, as always, to see you here. Monday is a holiday here. Oh yeah, Monday is a holiday. Okay, guys. Again, Discord. Go to the stream announcements section. Put your info in, all that crap. And what happens next? Stream announcements, and we'll tell you if there's one happening Monday or not. We'll warn you far enough ahead of time. That's right, it is a holiday. Might not be on Monday, might be. I got to figure it out. Folks, lovely to be here with you. Such a delight as always. I have a colorful shirt on today, which is a rarity, but hey, trying to mix it up. And I'm looking for this application. Folks, as always, nice to be here with you. In this particular moment, right here, right now. Take a moment just to notice which parts are rising. Often we don't notice parts are rising. This is actually important. We should have said this earlier. We don't notice that parts are rising because we think they are ourself. They think they're us. It's me. That's who it is. It's not a part. It's just me. So even if there's a sense of me, who I am right now, taking that in, just assuming that that is actually a part, that is a perspective on reality. It is not raw, unadulterated reality. It is from the perspective of a part, a self. And notice that that part has a view of the world, as a sense of how things should be, what's coming next, what we're going to do in the next few moments. It's planning, preparing, all these things. And just thank that part for all of its hard work, even if it's what we might call ourselves. Just being thankful, appreciative for all of the work, effort, sacrifice that part makes in order to keep us safe, healthy, happy. Folks, as always, practice well, take care of each other, have fun, and we'll see you all very, very soon.